Hello again, everyone. And well, thank you for joining us today in one more episode of Dojo Live, connecting experts like you. And as ever, we have Tulio Siragusa, my teammate, way over there in LA. Hi, Tulio.
Hey, hello everyone. Beautiful sunny day here in Los Angeles. Finally.
Great. I envy you. It's gray and rainy here. Okay. And joining us for the first time ever, my fellow teammate, Paulette. Paulette, she's in our Hermosillo office. So, Paulette, hi. Welcome
Hola,
to
everyone. Hi.
Hi. It's a pleasure to have you here, both of you. And finally, last but not least, we are going to be having a great conversation with Derrick Ashong. Derrick Ashong is the CEO and founder of Amp.it, and he's going to be telling us all about what Amp.it is about. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you here today, Derrick. So welcome to today's show. Derrick?
Did Derrick freeze?
I don't know. He might have.
Oh, he's coming back in.
Yeah, he's coming back in. So these things happen, folks. So please bear with us. And it's that's the ins and outs of.
There's two of you now, Derrick.
Hey, Derrick.
I must
feel like I'm in the
popular.
Matrix.
I'm like,
which one do I talk to now, Derrick? You or you?
Whichever one is better looking.
Oh, okay, cool.
The other one is just smiling.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Must be some flares happening.
He left.
Here you go.
Okay.
Seriously.
Well, well, Derrick, as I was saying, folks, Derrick is the CEO and founder of Amp.it, and he's a man of many hats and a lot of accomplishments that he's going to be telling us all about it in a few minutes. So, Derrick, officially welcome to today's show. And Derrick, it's a pleasure and an honor to have you here in today's conversation on Dojo Live. I only have two questions for you, and the first one is simply tell us about you. Tell us about a little bit of your story and how you just got to where you are, and of course, then you can tell us about Amp.it, what it is, and how you serve your audiences and your clients. So tell us about that, and then I'll pass on the mic to Paulette and Tulio. Welcome to today's show, Derrick.
Thank you so much, Carlos. I'm happy to be here. I appreciate the invitation. My background is a little interesting. I was born in a house with no running water in Ghana, West Africa. When I was a little kid, I came to the United States. My dad came here first. We rejoined him after a couple of years, and I lived in Flatbush, Brooklyn. I stayed in Brooklyn. I grew up there. That's why I talk the way I talk. And I left for the Middle East when I was about 8 years old. And then I lived in Saudi Arabia and Qatar. I came back for my last couple years of high school, went to Harvard took some time off, acted in the Steven Spielberg film, went back, did a PhD looking at how trends in open source software map onto ideas of open source content, got sucked out of my PhD program and started working in industry, working for major players in the rec, then subsequently for big people in the TV industry like Oprah, and wound up producing interactive content that aired in over 300 million households around the world. And then came to this realization that, like, wait a minute, we're doing all this cool stuff with all these cool people. We have no idea who's watching any of it. We know we're reaching people. We don't know who they are, so we can't build a direct relationship with them. So I thought, well, how could you solve that? And I got back together with a couple of my friends from Harvard and a friend from Google and LinkedIn. And we built a platform called Amp.it that makes it easy for content owners to know who's watching and why. And that's what I do.
Perfect, awesome. This is incredible. I mean, I could ask you tons of questions, but I'll just leave that to the end.
The answer is 42.
Oh,
I'm just
42.
Gonna put that out.
Yeah,
42.
Just like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe, right?
Best believe.
Exactly. Cool. Okay, so Derrick, what is Amp.it? Tell us about that.
Okay, so if you think about how the traditional way of promoting content in digital media works, like you go out there, I'll give you an example. I'll change the names to protect the innocent and the guilty. But I talked to a producer recently who had done a big campaign with this video release. They'd had celebrities involved. It was fantastic. They got like 40 million views. Boom, huge success. Okay, that sounds fantastic. They're coming to do their next release, and I'm asking them, like, well, what is what are the challenges or the opportunities? What's on your mind? He's like, well, we're really stressed out because, we're kind of young and the company's only been around for a few years and we don't really have an audience. And I'm like, wait a minute, you just released this thing. You got 40 million views. What do you mean you don't have an audience? And I know what he's going to say, but I have to give him the chance to say, he's like, well, we release it on YouTube and we just don't really. And I'm like, okay, enough said. Because when you release your content via platforms like Facebook and YouTube, sure, they'll tell you how many people watched. They won't tell you who they are. So if you're thinking about building a relationship with that audience, if you're thinking about how to measure the lifetime customer value of your members of your audience, it becomes very difficult. Things that we take for granted in e-commerce or other traditional forms of sales or in technology at large, when it comes to digital media, the industry is flying blind. And it's not just producers, it's TV networks, it's record labels, it's film studios. And so what Amp.it does is it makes it possible for a content creator to build a campaign around works that they believe are fantastic, and for the audience to opt in to participate and engage with that creator. And once they opt in, you know exactly who they are. And we're able to do it through syndicatable tools that can be embedded on different websites. So you can build an audience directly where they are on a blog or a digital magazine, etc. Be able to maintain a central database where you manage both your content and your community. And it's all based upon giving the user the power to decide who and what data.
Great. Thank you so much, Derrick, for elaborating on what Amp.it is. And
Sure.
now I'd like to pass on the mic to, let's start with Tulio.
Great. Hey, man, power to the user, totally.
No
very
doubt.
excited to talk with you. So, Derrick, tell me a little bit. It sounds like you're disrupting something. How does this change Nielsen, or is this an enhancement, or is this a competitive product? What are you doing in terms of disrupting the status quo?
So, okay, well, apologies in advance to all the lovely, warm-hearted, beautiful Nielsen employees that are watching right now. But I think that Nielsen has missed the boat for the most part. They have been slow to adapt to the new technologies. They came up in a time where you were in a kind of an analog world, and you basically guesstimate what people are watching. The way I always describe it to folks is like, if you think about the record industry, they basically would sell to a retailer. Then they got SoundScan. That would give them a little bit more data, but they don't actually know who's buying the record. Film industry, you sell the AMC, you sell the Cinemark. Who bought the tickets and the popcorn? I don't know. Has arguably been in the worst situation because they put a couple of Nielsen boxes in a few homes in Iowa and literally guesstimate what everybody's watching. And that may have worked when you had 3 stations. That may have worked when you had 10 or 20 or 50. You now have literally thousands upon thousands upon thousands of media outlets across all kinds of different platforms all over the world. And the traditional Nielsen model is not sufficient to really understand the audiences that are engaging through those outlets. So yes, you could say that we're disrupting the traditional sort of analytics and ratings industry. We're disrupting, in a sense, something else, though, is the way that we think about social media and the way that we think about content. And I would argue that there's been predominantly like massive shifts in culture and software and technological innovation. They're always tied to shifts in hardware innovation, right? So for our purposes, let's say that you've gone from you go to the advent of personal computing. That has transformative effects on the industry, and you're able to have these huge companies grow like IBM and Intel and Apple just from that. Then you look at the advent of mobile computing. Okay, mobile computing changes the world once again, and all of a sudden Google is rising through, and Facebook almost died until they got a handle on mobile computing, and then they've taken things to a whole new level, and that's really transformed the way we live, the way we communicate and engage. Well, there's another change happening. There's actually a series of changes. If you ask people what are the most interesting sort of hardware changes that relate to the media industries, they'll say, oh, well, you've got, augmented reality, you've got virtual reality, all these things are huge, and they are. But there's something even more fundamental that doesn't get discussed as much. And that is the move from a broadcast world to a broadband world. And that hardware shift is happening behind the scenes. It's not held, in your hand. It's not sexy. You're not going to pay $1,000 to get a better photo from this. This is something that has got to do with the pipes. The pipes were one-way world. The pipes are now two-way perspective. It's no longer we make something, we throw it up against the wall, we hope that the audience likes it. Now there's the opportunity to push content out and to hear from the audience in return, to engage in a two-way interaction. Now, the big players in the game, if you look at like Netflix and Amazon, they are dominant players in digital video. At the same time, they have really taken an old school broadcast model and put it online. It's still a one-way interaction. Then you look at Facebook and YouTube, and hey, they're super interactive, and we can all talk and chat and share everything with our friends. But the content, that quality control is not quite there. So what we do is we look at a world where, wait a minute, what if you took the power of really high-end TV quality content, and let's assume that doesn't get it yet, so we're moving beyond and considering what we learn from pioneers and we say if we take that high-quality TV content and merge it with the interactivity of social media, how could that change the experience of creating and consuming and popularizing content? And that is what we're interested in, and that's what we do at Amp.it.
Wow. Well, so definitely broadband removed a lot of barriers of entry for new players who wanted to get into the television business. How does this help a new entrant kind of leapfrog forward in terms of hitting it out of the park from the get-go? Does that change the
that's
model
a great
of
question.
how you introduce a new television station or a new streaming service? How can, if I was a client trying to build my new product, how would this benefit me in terms of being more lazy? Perhaps, I don't know. What's the answer?
I think it's a great question, and I think there's a simple answer, and that is another question. Would you rather spend a ton of money building your network and building and acquiring the content and get your infrastructure together and market and promote it and put your stuff out there and hope that the audience likes it? Or would you rather have the audience tell you what you want, give it to them, and monetize that? Do you want to guess, or do you want to get closer to a surer thing? That's where we come in. See, we can make it possible for you to engage with the audience before you start production, before you even turn on the cameras. We literally, when we built the platform, we had this idea of we're going to do all this amazing stuff with content. We're going to help everybody. It's going to be great. They're going to love it. And as soon as we went to content owners, they're like, yo, how long has your company been around? 3 months, and it's awesome. And they were like, yeah, we don't know you. Don't touch my content. We're like, oh my God, the 3 months is not impressive. Okay, so what do we do? So we had this crazy idea of like, well, a bunch of us come from an entertainment background. We already have multiple Emmy nominations and this and that between us. What if we just created a series that showcased our content? We created this series called The World Cup, and we shot it in Brazil, Colombia, and Jamaica. But the cool thing about it, right, is that we didn't actually shoot anything until the kids in those communities used the Amp.it technology to tell, this is hot. This community is fresh. Oh my God, did you know that these dancers are doing X? Have you been to this particular neighborhood? This is the story that we want to hear told. And so, when we first told people we were going to do a 100% audience curated show, they're like, you're crazy. What if the audience is not smart? What if they've not got taste? What if the artists suck? And we had this one sort of crazy idea, which is Well, you know, everyone is not talented. YouTube has taught us that. I mean, there's a lot of content on there, but most of it is not great. Some of it is genius, and most of it here with my cat and my grandma. Okay, everyone on camera talented, but everyone knows when they see talent. Everyone knows what they think is good, and that's powerful. We've all got taste. You know, don't get it twisted when they're like, well, these people know what's. Everyone knows what they think is cool, and if you give the audience the ability to tell you what moves them, you'd be surprised at how insightful they are. So what we did is we put it in the hands of these kids to tell us what they thought was hot. It's stuff that we could have never imagined. And they've been doing it now all around the world. Now, the irony is we were told that, well, if you do it this way, you're going to run a risk and everything might suck. And then nobody's going to want to look at your stuff and you're not going to prove the concept and they won't know anything about your technology. Not only did it prove that the technology could harness the power of the audience to have a two-way dialogue before you start creating your content, but within 6 months of releasing the product, the winning band went from a favela in Rio, outside of Rio, where we met them, to the newspaper, and we got an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Interactive Program. We were a finalist alongside Taylor Swift. Who would have thought? And so, to answer your question, you know, there is something really, really powerful about giving people the opportunity to speak and tell you what they want. And if you are smart as a producer, as a studio executive, as the creator of a new video on demand service or digital service, etc., and I ask you that question, guess what people want? Would you rather let them tell you? There's only one right answer to that question.
Wow. So is it safe to say you're democratizing media, basically?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Let's shift a little bit into the tech. Tell us a little bit
Hey
how
guys,
it works.
I have a question from our Twitter account. It's for Derrick and says, what kind of partnerships would you consider strategic to your growth and why?
Okay, so we think that is a fantastic question. For us, media partnerships are very important. Personally invest in media. We help other people make their content more interactive and better understand their audience. So right now, we have a partnership with a company called ITV, which is a major global production and distribution partner. Production company. We have some very significant senior executives on our team from major studios, record labels, telecom companies. And in addition to that, we're currently in talks with some very, very large media brands, as well as some really big companies or sort of organizations in the nonprofit, NGO, social sector. And the idea for us is, let's actually build an opportunity for these content owners to better understand their content. And we can use that as a way for us to build and grow audience and cultivate an audience and teach them how you can have this different, more interactive experience. And in so doing, we grow much faster than trying to do it step by step all on our own. So even up to this point, you know, we've been able to partner with some really fantastic companies, both here in the US and overseas. And that's how we've been able to scale up. So those are some of the most important partnerships that we see, is media companies, as well as sort of groups that have large audience but don't have great technology or content, like organizations. And then the third type of partnership that I think is critical for us in this next phase is actually telecom companies. Because in the US, for example, you know, if I've got my cell phone on, I'm watching mad videos all day, Verizon and T-Mobile are going to be mad because they're like, yo, you're eating up all the data and your unlimited plan. But in most of the world, it's not necessarily like that. In a lot of places, it's pay as you go. So if they can get really compelling content and they can get really compelling technology that drives deeper engagement with that content, they make more money the more people consume. And so we've started having significant conversations with large telecoms in different territories around the world. So those are the three categories of partner that we are looking at right now.
Yeah. And we have another question for you. This is from Jocelyn in Hermosillo, Sonora. And she asks, do you think that this is new streaming era that we are living in right now, opposed to the sales in the past? I mean, is it more beneficial for independent artists, or does it represent a threat or a challenge?
Okay, I think that the streaming, as far as like, let's say TV, video-based content, is a great benefit for new creators because there's so many players in the game desperately trying to find high quality content. I think there are more opportunities now for people to not only make high quality new content, but to be creative and take more risk with that content. And initially that's from a storytelling perspective and a visual medium perspective. But I think you're going to start to see that change in terms of interactivity. I was approached in the last like week and a half by 3 different producers that were all looking at, well, how do I've had this vision of doing something interactive, it's more involved, and is that something you could help me with? And that's our answer is yes, absolutely, we can help you with that. And so I think that the nature of storytelling is going to shift when you start thinking that, oh, we want to have a two-way dialogue with the audience. That said, I do think there are challenges. So for example, in music, the streaming world in music is for independent creators, even for mainstream artists. If you put your song on Spotify, the amount of money you get paid per stream is infinitesimal. It's infinitesimally small. You have to have a whole lot of streams in order to make any kind of money at all. And I don't know that it's necessary because not profitable themselves yet. They have some pretty terms with the major labels, and so I'm not convinced that the model for the future of music is set. I think that there's still going to be some ebb and flow in that market. I think that for video, for film, for augmented reality and VR, that is kind of the wild, wild west where things are moving rapidly towards more and better experiences for both the creators and the fans.
Wow. Thanks, Derrick. This is awesome. I'm going to push our infamous chat bot now to see if there's any additional questions. Hang on, Carlos.
Yeah, please. I'm ready.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, here it is. It's coming. Folks, if you're watching this or you just stepped in and you have any questions for Derrick, so here's our chat bot, and it tells you where to send your questions. This is our high-tech digital chat bot, and it's fully integrated with Twitter. So this is why where you can send your questions right here at DojoLIVE. Okay, so you know how to use Twitter.
Integrate that level of animation in a live stream. It's just like
mind-blowing.
Like y'all are so innovative. You got just pushing the envelope. It's amazing. It's fantastic. I'm thrilled to experience this firsthand. Fantastic.
Right. Well, with that being said, thank you, and Paulette, back to you.
Any more questions, Paulette?
I have a question. So, Derrick, you were telling us about that you are really focused on the user and that they are telling you all these ideas on what they want to do. But how do you validate these ideas into deciding which are the best features or functionality for your product?
Okay, that's a great question. So there's kind of 2 aspects of how the users, we engage with them. There's the product development side, and then there's the content development side. So what we do internally and what we do for clients. Mm-hmm. Internally, when we first started, we actually did something very, very bricks and mortar. We went out and we talked to people in person. We sat down with record executives, with TV producers. We sat down with musicians and studio executives. We sat down with ad agency people, and most importantly, high school kids. And we asked them, we have this idea that there's a problem here to solve. One, the content creator doesn't know how to connect directly with their best fan. And on the flip side of that, the fans, they have balls and they make and necessarily from doing so, right? How can you reward somebody for being that great fan? And we got all this incredible feedback. So when it came time to design the product, we put very specific strategies in place and built them into the tool set that were based upon what people were telling us. We had a theory in mind, but we kind of took more of a scientific method, which is we tested it without building first. And then once we figured out what was resonating and what people were telling us that we didn't know, then we started building against that, and then we tested it some more. Then we built some more, and we tested more, built some more, and tested more. Y'all know the lean methodology, et cetera, et cetera. We're all down with it. Great. what wound up happening is we realized that, wait a minute, the people know a lot more than we do. And it's really powerful when you give them a voice.
Yes.
So then we will apply that when you're developing the content side. And that's where we made it super simple. You don't have to go into Amp.it or vote, or instead they're clicking. You vote with your engagement based on what you watch, based on what you share. And the algorithms look at the nature of your engagement and they rank the creators that you're engaging with. And they do it in a very transparent system. If you go into Amp.it right now, every video, every campaign, every user profile, you'll see right there the top fans of that people, you know, and you'll see how they engage. So shared it. These people watched it. This, all of this stuff, that's a super transparent. There's more detailed analytics on the back end for, you know, enterprise clients, etc. But the principle is, if you let people show you through their engagement what they care about, then you'll be more likely not only to invest in technology that works for them, but in content that works for them too.
I love everything you said. I mean, it's the happy path in every UX designer life. So I love it that you are encouraging this type of research and like empowering your users to let you know what they want to see. Like, I love this. I have another question for you. If you had to start over, what would you do different and why?
Oh my God.
Aha.
All right. So this one is for all the entrepreneurs here out there.
Yes.
If I were to start over, listen to my gut more. See, part of what happens when you're first starting out, you know, most entrepreneurs, it's not like you just woke up one day and started building something. You've done something already in your past. I've done a number of really cool things in my past. So if you would meet me in my natural element, you'd be like, yo, that dude is hella confident. He's just out there. Some people think he's cocky. I'm like, I'm not cocky. I'm aware of my skill set. But basically, I would be, you know, I'm going to do what I think is right in this space because I've spent 20 years doing this and I know how to do it right. I am not as young as I look. This is a product of a lot of moisturizing, and don't spend too much time in the sun, kids. But literally, you spend 20 years in the field, you start to know some things, right? And you try to hopefully to learn, but you have confidence when you go to execute, right? When you start a company, you're going to take that expertise and you're going to understand, but you got to push the envelope, because if you already understood everything that was to be done or could be done, you wouldn't be innovating, would you? So one of the things that I think happened, that I found happened to myself, is I would go into circumstances where my instincts, based upon my 20 plus years in the industry, were telling me, Derrick, do this. Then I'll go and I'll talk to people. And this advisor said, no, don't do that, this and this and this. And that investor said, no, you've got to understand, this is the nature of the market. You got to really consider this. And then this like random dude on Twitter is like, why would anybody do that? Oh my God. And then to say. And so you try to think, well, you know, I don't know everything. I've got to try to. And I made a series of decisions that went against my gut that all turned out bad. And now we were fortunate because I'm a willful person and reasonably self-confident. Most of the decisions, I just went with my gut. I was like, well, I think this is what to do, and we're just going to do it. Like when we talk about, you know, we had this situation where we made the platform, we didn't have any content. And I told some people, I was like, yo, I think I'm going to create this content to showcase the platform. And a bunch of people were like, you're an idiot. You can't be a tech content company and do media. I'm like, yeah, but we're not going to be a media company. We're a tech case, our tech using content. No, bad idea. And my first investor suggested I go talk to a colleague of his. And I went and I spoke to the then head of Global Cook. And I was like, yo, this is what we've done. And I know it's nuts and people think I'm crazy, but I'm going to make a show to show off my platform. And she was like, yeah, that is insane, but it's kind of genius. And most tech startups can't even do that if they wanted to. So what the hell? And I did it, and it took us to a whole new level. At the same time, there were moments where I was like, I don't know if that person is the right fit for the company. I'm not sure if this person is truly committed. I'm not sure if that way of reframing the contract that I had in mind is the right way to close this particular partnership. Experts come in and like, no, this is how it's done. You need somebody like that on your team. You need to structure this contract in this particular way. You need to do those kinds of deals. And virtually every time when, not that it wasn't good to take outside advice, but when the outside advice didn't jive with my instincts, it usually turned out to be a problem. So I would give a small piece of advice to any other early stage entrepreneurs there, which is you're going to walk a fine line between confidence and humility all the time. And you are definitely going to make mistakes. What I hope and pray for all of you, all of us, is that you make mistakes you can live with, that you don't make any decisions that go against your ethics. That's something I can feel good about. The decisions that I made where I'm like, I made a mistake, was always trying to do the right thing. It was never trying to screw anybody over. So I'll live with those mistakes. I did wrong, but I am the kind of person I want to be. Make those mistakes early in the game. Try and try and try. Don't sit there with the analysis paralysis. Get out there and do stuff. Because if you play it safe and you wind up being successful enough that you get some capital, and then you are forced to take risks, because once people put money in, you have to spend it, and you have to spend it wisely, and you start making big mistakes with other people's money, that's when it starts to hurt. The kind of mistakes we've made have made us a leaner, smarter, stronger company and growing faster for it.
Derrick, I'm enjoying your absolute authenticity. It's refreshing. Thank you for that. And I have one.
I know you're from New York, so you understand. It's Brooklyn all day.
Exactly. I grew up on the Bronx, so we got that going on there for sure. So before I hand it back to Carlos to wrap it up, as a company, we really value freedom, and we're a self-managed organization, freedom-based organization, and so I'm hearing a lot about empowerment throughout your entire conversation. So could you tell us a little bit about the company culture? What are some of your guiding principles before we wrap this up?
That's great. I love that. So there are a few things. One, from myself as a CEO, I only hire people who are smarter than me. And I am thrilled when I find somebody who knows more about what they do than I do. So we strive towards excellence. And once we've brought somebody into the fold, we try to imbue in them a sense of confidence that, we really believe in you. We're going to question, we're going to challenge, we're going to go back and forth and figure out what's right. But we believe in each other and we stand by one another. That's number one. We strive for excellence and recognize it in our team members. The other thing is a little bit counterintuitive. It's not what people would expect, but I find it to be very important. Amp.it is a 50-50 gender balanced company, which is rare in technology. And the reason that happened is not by accident. It's because we realize that, wait a minute, about like the issues that they face and have a harder time recognizing what's happening in someone else's shoes. Right. And so when you talk about things like diversity in technology, they'll be like, well, there just aren't as many women that are capable, and there aren't as many people of color that are this and this and da 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 da. Now I was like, well, I am West African. I grew up in Brooklyn. It's super diverse. Da 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 da. Like I'm not sure that how do I put it? Some of the diversity questions I have a different perspective on when it comes to race and culture and ethnicity. West Africans are like the highest educated, highest earning segment of the American population. Nobody knows it. So our feeling is like, we gonna get in there and crush it regardless of what you say or do. But that said, I noticed something when I was talking to people and recruiting people, and that was that the men would always negotiate harder. It's not 100% true, but for the most part. The women would come in and be like, I like this. I believe in this team. I believe in what you're doing. I want to participate. This is what I need. The guys would be like, yeah, you guys are cool, but let me get that paper. I want this in equity. I want this in cash. I want this on the back end, blah, 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 blah. And we realized that, wait a minute, this is the beginning of that pay gap between the genders. And this is also the beginning of the gap in how people rise through the ranks. And it's not because the women are less qualified or less capable. So what we did is we instituted a baseline compensation. All of our advisors get the same compensation. our team members get the same compensation. There are certain things you can do to raise your compensation, but it's the same for everybody. Now, some people will come to the company and they're like, well, I'm not feeling that. I want this and this and this. We're like, okay, it was great to talk to that. So, let's keep in touch. Maybe we could collaborate some ways down the road. But most of the people have been like, well, but why do you do that? And we tell them straight up, we say that so that everybody's got a fair shot to excel, and you don't get the benefit just because you're a good negotiator. Somebody else might be a terrible negotiator, but maybe an amazing UX person or incredible marketer and fantastic with product. That is how we roll. That is a central tenet of our company culture, is to try to find the best in all of us and to try to give people an equal playing field. And what's happened because of that is we have some incredibly gifted people on our team who we would never have been able to recruit, except that we saw and looked beyond the normal things on the resume. We created a company culture that they could believe in, and they work with us because they feel proud to be associated with something like this. And we are all the better for it.
Derrick, it's always a pleasure spending time with you. Thank you so much. Carlos is going to pass it back to you to wrap up.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much, Tulio. Okay, well, Derrick, I think the only thing, well, first of all, I have to say something. I forgot at the beginning of the conversation to mention something that I usually do, is mention the topic that we're going to build the conversation around. And by the way, folks, this is fan-powered media. I know it might be a little late because we're about to wrap up, but I just wanted to mention this. We were going to talk about fan-powered media and the future of creativity in a broadband world. But in any case, this topic of the future of creativity in the broadband world, you can always go back to our website and look for this conversation, which is being recorded and uploaded, and then you can contact Derrick right there, and then he can elaborate on this particular topic of his interest. And so I apologize for this little blooper. It's the first time that ever happens to me, to be honest. Okay, well, folks, the only thing left for me to do is, well, Derrick, will send you a big heartfelt warm thank you for having agreed to be here with us today. It was an honor and a pleasure just listening to you. I mean, you have an incredible personality that just is very, very, how can I say this? I mean, I'm black with words. It's just like, it's fun and it's engaging. You're very engaging. And I look forward to learning more about Amp.it. And of course, I'll be just keeping an eye on its growth and its continued success. With that being said, just three things. Thank you, Tulio, as ever. Thank you, Paulette, and welcome to this craziness called DojoLIVE.
Welcome to the show, Paulette.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to the show. And I want to send a special thank you to our teammate, Carmen, a.k.a. Caju. Caju, thank you so much. I know you're behind the scenes on Twitter, so you're doing a great job. So I just wanted to be fair. Special thank you to Carmen, right over there in Hermosillo. With that being said, Derrick, thank you so much again. And folks, thank you for having been in one more edition of DojoLIVE. And before we go, just a very quick announcement about next week's interview. Okay. Next week, we're going to have we're going to be chatting with Heidi Helfand. She's director of engineering at Procore, and we're going to be talking about dynamic reteaming and basically everything how team changes are inevitable. So she's going to be telling us how to get good at it.
Hey, Carlos, is that next week or is that this Friday? I think that's coming up in 2 days.
No, wait a minute. You're right. I'm sorry. Just folks, we usually have one interview per week.
Special week this week.
Yeah, exactly. But now this week, this is a double whammy.
Busy week.
It's a busy week. So let me correct that. Heidi Helfand, Director of Engineering at Procore, this Friday. That's going to be in 2 days from now. So keep an eye on that. And so she's going to be talking to us about teams, dynamic reteaming. Sorry about that. With that being said, folks, thank you so much, and keep an eye for more great upcoming interviews on DojoLIVE, connecting experts like you. Thank you, Derrick.
Thanks, Al. Muchísimas gracias a todos.
Ay, muchas gracias.
De nada.